So we've got a bit to cover today. Now, I'm not suggesting that by following authority content that you will become the next president of the United States, but it worked for Donald, so it might work for you too. All right, so I've got a couple of sessions that we're going to go through today. The first one, I'm going to really dive deep into authority content, explain the process, and really for you to get the most out of this, it's about thinking about how it applies to your business. So take notes. We'll try and do a little bit of sort of interaction to make sure you think, always ask the question, how can I apply this in my business? And it's a very powerful strategy that I've been developing over the last couple of years, or actually probably close to 10 years now, chiseled it away on multiple different businesses and honed it down to just like the bare essentials as far as a strategy that you can apply. So we'll go into that, and then later on, my second session, we're going to talk a little bit more about the strategy that I use when I'm consulting with clients. So it'll go hand in hand with authority content, but we'll start with authority content first. But just to get a little bit of an idea, who has done any sort of search engine optimization before for their business? Okay, couple, yep. Who is still applying some of the strategies that they might have been applying a few years ago today as well, and finding they're still getting the same sorts of results? Maybe one up here. There's been a lot of change in the industry over the last couple of years, and it is time to start updating the strategy. And sometimes you can have these misconceptions around what SEO is and what SEO can provide, because you might be thinking historically what it did, but the game's changed now. So what I'm trying to do is just readjust the strategy to make sure that it's working for you currently and something that'll last well into the future, so you're not kind of just very opportunistic and taking advantage of a loophole in some sort of algorithm in Google, but rather you're building something up that'll last for the long term. So what we'll end up covering, we'll talk a little bit about Google, and we'll talk about the algorithm itself, like how it's evolved, some of those big changes. We'll talk about, well, what is authority content and how you can apply it in your business, and I want to break that up. It's a 3-stage process. We've got present, product, and promote. So we'll start off having a look at how Google has evolved. So there's been lots of different updates. Have people heard some of these names that they've had? There's like penguin, panda, hummingbird. Have you heard some of these names? These were names given to algorithmic updates inside Google's search engine. And there's a whole bunch of other ones that didn't end up getting names as well. But the takeaway here is the speed at which the algorithm is updating is getting quicker and quicker. So sometimes people might find a little loophole, and if you go back 5 years ago, it was really quite simple. You'd figure out which keywords you wanted to rank for, you'd stuff those keywords onto the page, you'd put it in the title tag, the description, a couple of times on the page, then you would send some backlinks to it, and before you knew it, you were ranking for any keyword that you wanted. So that, for me, is a little bit of a loophole, and a lot of people took advantage of that, and then Google started to get smarter and smarter because their objective is to serve the best and most relevant results to the end user on Google, because they know if they do that, people come back and they keep using Google over and over and over again, and then they can keep running ads, and then they can make their money. So if the search engine results get progressively worse and people aren't finding what they're looking for and people have figured out how to game the system, people stop using Google. So Google had to start evolving, and they started coming up with ways to basically ding people on the head if they were doing some strategies that were gaming the system. And they're only getting quicker. So the takeaway is they're out there fighting spam to get it out of the search engines and only have the quality stuff rise to the top. So the aim of the game now really is to try and give Google what they want. We want to try and provide them with as much quality and mesh it in with what we know Google's looking for. So this is what search engine used to look like. Search engine optimization, back in 2004, again, it was just about some links, stuffing some keywords, and then ranking. Now, if you look at it today, and it's only that more and more criteria and factors are coming in, like Google's starting to have a look at how long people are actually sticking on the website. That's a really big one. That's one of the biggest metrics that Google's looking at, is the user engagement. What are people doing when they actually get to your website? How long are they staying on the website? How many pages are they looking at? Like, do you think it's a very good signal to Google if someone runs a search on Google, lands on your website, and then within 2 or 3 seconds hits the back button and then goes back to the search results to click on another search results listing? Like, for Google, that's a really strong signal that your website didn't provide what it was that they were looking for. So that's something then that they can start to push your website deeper and deeper into the page 2, page 3, and then you're never found anyway. That's not to mention a lot of the other factors that they're looking at. They're looking at how quickly your website loads. Obviously, with the rise of mobile, it's important to have a very quick loading website. They're looking at what sort of content you've got and how it's being shared. So there's a whole lot of different factors now, which actually make it quite difficult now to try and reverse engineer the algorithm and then trying to game it to look for those loopholes. So now I think we're seeing a big change in the strategy in the way that you need to approach search engine optimization. Now, no one knows exactly how the search engines work. Google doesn't come out and say, hey, here's my algorithm, here's how we decide what we're going to rank. So what we need to do is we kind of reverse engineer a little bit. We look at what websites are ranking. We try and see what sort of common elements and factors there are. We run little tests. We look to what Google says. Google is getting so much better now at telling us what it is that they're looking for. So we listen to what it is that they say, and then we incorporate that into the strategy. So one of the best ways, and if I will take all the best bits out of this document for you in this presentation, but if you want to dig into it in a little bit deeper, Google has this quality guidelines. They say it gets leaked, but it just happens to get leaked all the time. So I don't know how leaked it is, but this is the guidelines that they give to some of their manual reviewers, and you can download it for free. Just search Google's quality guidelines. And it basically explains, if a manual reviewer comes to the website, what it is that they would want that website to exhibit to determine whether or not it's of quality and whether or not it should be ranked highly. So they'll tell you what they're looking for. Now, initially, when this document comes out, if you think about it this way, that's the first point of contact when Google says this is what we're looking for, and it's manually reviewed. Then over time, they implement it, and then they try and think, how do we do this at scale? And then they turn it into the algorithm. And then once it becomes part of the algorithm, then sometimes they run algorithm updates that get, rolling updates. Like you'd see that with Penguin and Panda. They'd roll out a Penguin update every 6 months or every quarter or something like that. But then it then gets incorporated into the algorithm itself, and it becomes part of the way that they calculate if something should be ranked or not. So what this document gives you insight into where Google's headed 2 or 3 moves down the pipe. So it's good to look at this document, cherry pick the best bits, incorporate it into your strategy, and then what that's doing, it's future-proofing you for when these algorithm updates do happen. And it helps you when you're getting manual reviewers and things like that. So how does it work? There's a big long list of all of these different factors and a rating scale. And you can see it there, lowest to highest, low, medium, high, highest. And there's a whole series of different questions that they ask. And effectively, they're ranking your website on this scale on a whole variety of different things. Then they sum the number up to give your website a quality score. Once it gets that quality score, that then gives an overall effect to the ranking ability of that website. So even if you've got a very relevant bit of content, but your website has a very low quality score, you'll find on a whole, it tends not to rank that well. It's almost like you're carrying a lead weight. So what you want to do, the aim of the game is get your website as close to Google's best practice as possible, and then it gives any sort of content or information that you're doing the best chance of rising to the top and appearing in Google. So it's a little bit like a scoreboard, and I've underlined a few things here. One thing that really stuck out, actually there it talks about ranking from the lowest to the highest in some of the different categories, but one of the big things that stuck out for me, and it was echoed throughout the entire report when it came out, is this idea of expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. They gave it the acronym EAT. And a lot of the people in the search engine industry started talking about this acronym EAT because it flowed throughout the entire document. They're looking for people, websites, that demonstrate and show expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. And then they give us the criteria that they're looking for to rank that. And you can see there, high quality pages and websites need enough expertise to be authoritative, trustworthiness on their topic. Down the bottom, not to penalise the page or person website for not having formal education. So it's not necessarily about being seen as, traditional education and authority and expertise that way. There are other factors in which they rank that. Now, normally my slides, I love just doing slides that just have not one beautiful picture and no words, but I thought it was good to show you this document. That way for, those who are quite analytical, you can make notes and go have a look in the document itself. But I wanted to show you, I'm taking the words straight from the horse's mouth, Google, and then giving it to you on what you need to do to build up your authority and expertise, which will get you better visibility online, which gets you more leads, which, once we start converting better, then we'll get us more customers as well. So it's one thing that really stood out here, and it's the trump card, is the positive reputation. A very positive reputation can be the reason for giving a high rating for an otherwise medium page. So basically they're saying if you've got a good reputation in the eyes of Google, let's, all boats float on a rising tide. Let's mark everything that you're doing up a notch because we consider you to have a positive reputation. So the light globe moment for you here then should be, what I should be focusing on is building up my reputation. And it will have effects in all different areas of business. It's not just ranking online, but that will also help with the way that you engage with your prospects. Because if you're seen as the expert, then it's going to be easier to convert them. They're going to already trust you because they look to you as the authority. So really, that should be, from a marketing perspective, one of the things that you make your core focus. How can you keep leveling up you being seen as the authority and the expert in the eyes of your prospect and clients? Because if you do that, that's got lifetime value as well. We're not talking about finding some search engine optimization loophole. Even if we took Google out of the picture and you invested all of your time and energy into building up that reputation, even if Google changes overnight and some other search engine comes along, the benefit of you building up that reputation remains, and it remains in no matter what area you're trying to market yourself online. Building up that reputation is a good use of your time. Focusing in on opportunities and windows of opportunities that are very small, that only give you a short time to capitalize and actually make a profit from, is not the best, because we only have a limited time in the day anyway. So why would I focus my energy in on something that is short-lived and I won't continue to get lifetime value from? So we were having a discussion over dinner last night. This kind of comes back to, I might go on the record and say this now and look back and go, I can't believe I said that. But for me, Snapchat doesn't make sense for me, because Snapchat, you create a little bit of content and then it lives only for a very short window in time and then it disappears. For me, if I'm going to create something, I want to create a valuable piece of content that lasts forever, becomes a digital asset for me, and continues to pay. So I focus my energy and attention on things that have a long lifetime value. Now, the counter argument is, yeah, but there's so many eyes and engagement on Snapchat. But for me, the other thing is I like to build assets that I have control over. I don't want to put all of my energy into building up, a YouTube channel, a Facebook page, or something like that that's under the control of someone else. Like Facebook could come in, which they did. Remember when everybody was going wild about Facebook pages and it was all about getting likes to your page? Because, and people were spending money on Facebook's advertising platform to get likes on their page. And then they changed the rules effectively now, and you post on your page and who sees it? Hardly anyone, unless you pay. So, and another example, I had a YouTube channel. I was fortunate to get it back, but I built up a lot of following on YouTube, and then YouTube cancelled my account. And try and communicate with anyone at Google. It's just one big black box. You never hear back. I was lucky enough to get it back. I know a lot of people who didn't get it back. But if my business, its success, lived and died on that fact of that YouTube channel, that's a very dangerous situation to be in, because it's outside of the reach of something I have control over. Same with people who build businesses that are solely dependent on Google organic search. We saw that with some of the algorithm updates. People were killing it with search engine optimization. They were ranking for everything. They were getting great quality, low-cost leads because, SEO was easy. It was a window of opportunity. The algorithm changed, And then their businesses died overnight because it was kind of like the tide went out and we realised who was swimming naked. Like we were sorting the men from the boys, those who knew how to run a business and those who didn't. Because they were dependent on something that they didn't have control over. So really important as you build your business to make sure that you control the asset that you're putting most of your time and energy into, which for me is building reputation, is building authority, is working on your website, and we need to look at multiple ways to drive traffic. We want to build you up to be the Oprah within your industry. So for many reasons. Not only is it what Google's looking for, but it will also have real benefit for you for the way that you're engaging with your prospects and your leads. So that's why we want to do it. So we've kind of talked a little bit about how Google's been evolving, kind of bring you up to speed now. I'm hoping that if you were tightly holding on to the idea of what search engine optimization can do for you, I want you to kind of let go and realize things have started to change and you need to adjust your strategy. Just going for those old things just doesn't have the payoff that it used to. So we'll have a look at what authority content is, and it's basically that system that I developed. I used to be in the stock market education niche many years ago, probably early 2000s, and my business partner created a lot of the content for that space, and I was effectively the marketer. So I was trying to spread the word, and I tried a few different things, and I kind of discovered this method, and then for every successive business that I've run, launched, been involved in, I've basically taken the authority content method, kept chiseling it and improving it, throwing out the bits that work, putting the bits that come back in. I wanted to create a strategy that was evergreen, something that would last for years to come, because I didn't want to invest my time and effort into something that would be very short-lived. And even to this day, the application of authority content in the stock market education niche still drives me traffic, still drives me sales, and I haven't been in that space for over 10 years. I can't turn this traffic machine off. Now, I kind of stumbled into it, and there was a little bit of being in the right place at the right time, but now, with the benefit of hindsight, I'm going to kind of show you exactly what it is that I'm doing, and then you can replicate that and deploy it in your own business. So the definition that I've got in the book, and I've got some books up the back, but it's a little bit of a mouthful. I'll read it through, then we'll break it apart, and then you can cherry pick the bits to understand what authority content is. So it's the act of consistently creating and distributing helpful information and stories to gain the attention, engagement, and influence a clearly defined audience with the objective of being to identify those who would benefit from your products and services. Now, if I had my time again, I would probably make that 2 sentences. Yeah, just thought. But if we pull it apart, the bits that really stand out for me is we're looking at creating helpful information consistently. I was chatting with, I think it was Stan right at the start of the day, and he talked about one of the attendees here. Where are you? There he is. And he was talking about he created a video, and it was well polished, and it was the video that talked about his business, that sort of thing. He runs a cafe in Wollongong, and he just created one video, and it was very well polished, but didn't find he was getting that much traction with it. The real key here for authority content is you need to do it consistently. So we need to find the right balance between quantity versus quality. Because he made a beautiful looking video, but cost prohibitive to be putting out loads of that content all the time. But then if you think of the stuff Steve's doing the live type videos, he's just able to bang one out right then while you guys were all watching this, and the cost for him to do that was very small. So it's about finding the right balance between quantity versus quality. But we want to make sure it's helpful at the core. The whole purpose of putting out great content is to capture someone's attention, engage them, and then once we engage them, we can then start to influence them. And the whole idea is if someone engages in this type of content, so when Steve puts that video up and he gets engagement on Facebook, if he gets engagement on Facebook, just by the very nature of that person engaging in that content, they self-select themselves as someone who's interested in what it is that Steve has to say. So you have to be very particular with the type of content you create because it's the bait that catches the fish. So make sure you're putting the right bait out there. So it's got to be helpful, it's got to be consistent, and we need to overcome these 3 biggest hurdles online. We need to get attention, engagement, and trust. For me, it used to be very easy to get attention because we had, SEO, and it was, a little window of opportunity. Bless you, a little window of opportunity. And now, though, attention is getting harder and harder. In fact, attention is probably the hardest part of the game now because the marketplace online is so noisy. The attention is so fragmented across so many different platforms. That is the hardest bit. But once you get someone's attention, that's really only step one. We then need to engage them. It's not enough to put a very low quality piece of content out there, get someone's attention, and then they read it and go, this is rubbish. I'll make sure to never listen to what they say again. No, it's got to be high enough quality that they read it and go, that was helpful. I'll actually listen to that person again next time they've got something to say. So we need to think about getting the engagement. And then finally, if you do that long enough over a period of time, that's when you start to build trust. And then once someone trusts you, much easier to sell, changes the dynamic. And then you become a trusted advisor and you can direct them for things that can help them. So authority content, it's made up of a few different parts, and I think the key is some of the strategies that you'll hear about, or more so the tactics that you'll hear about for authority content might be familiar to you. What is unique is the way the tactics are assembled into a strategy, and then the way that the strategy all works together. Because I know business people are busy, they're on the tools. When are you going to find time and space to do this sort of stuff to market yourself well? I understand that. We work with a lot of clients in that space. So I had to think of a way to get the least possible input from the client to get the most possible output. And that's what it's about. This guy here, David Payne, he's the lead salesperson at a swimming pool manufacturer called Compass Pools. And we did authority content for this client, and just a few months after actually applying authority content, he went out to visit a prospect, got to the door and was greeted by a wife and a husband, and the wife said, "Oh, it's great to see you again," and then invited him into the house. And he just parked that in his brain and thought, "Well, I've never actually met you before. That's a little bit weird that you said it's nice to see you." And then continued having, they were sitting down in the lounge room, having this conversation, it's going on, and then she made numerous references to things that he had said in the past. And, it was nice to see you. She mentioned that at the start. It got to a point where he thought, unless I say something now, it's going to be incredibly, embarrassing for her if he brings up at the end, "Oh, we've never actually met before." So he thought, well, I'll politely ask, have we ever met before? And the wife was adamant. She's like, "Yep," and the husband joined in as well. "Yep, for sure we've met before." But he knew he had never actually met them before. And then as the meeting progressed, probably after about 40 minutes, the husband said, "I know how. We know you. You're the guy from the Compass Pools website. We've watched 2 hours of your videos before you ever stepped foot in this house. So we feel like we know you based on watching the videos." Now that's a pretty powerful place to be if someone feels like they already know you when you've never had any interaction, and it's very scalable. Again, it's all about, we have limited time in the day. You can't talk to every one of your prospects, but if we can and clone your message through video, which is very leverageable, and it's probably one of the best things that you can do to get your message out to the standard you would like consistently, because it's delivered the same way every time. That's why I think incorporating video into your marketing still is one of the biggest opportunities online. In fact, using video for everything. It really is the only way I know as a business owner to replicate and duplicate yourself. And video should be used in all parts of your business. I would be using it for staff induction, staff training, your operations manuals, introducing people to the business on the front end, using it for content, answering frequently asked questions. Like I would be using video everywhere. I'm obsessed with video. I am also a little bit biased because we run a video production company. But I find as I've matured in my business career, one thing I've noticed I do is I identify where my competitive advantage is, and then I often build a business around that to get incredibly good at it and get paid to develop our systems and processes. So early days, I set up Melbourne SEO services because that was a way for me. Search engine optimization at that point in time was our competitive advantage. We was good at it, and then I was able to develop it. Then video, I saw that as an opportunity, so we set up Melbourne video production. And just most recently, and it dovetails nicely with the work we're doing with Michael Gerber, is I've realised systems and processes really is so important for scaling your business. So we've developed a software as a service solution called System Hub, and that houses businesses' standard operating procedures in the cloud. Because I know if I'm selling a product, I've got to be the best example of what it is that I'm selling, and then it forces me to get really, really good at it. So that's just so you understand a little bit of my thinking, but I will not set up a business unless I can strategically see a reason for doing it. So if I look historically, for me, I saw, and you need to be thinking in your business, what is that competitive advantage? What is something that you can get really good at? And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So we ended up, while video is a component of it, there's a lot more to do with authority content, but basically we caught up with David Payne up in their offices, and we recorded a series of videos over the course of a day. We took them, we chopped them up into bits, and then we shared them out across the web, and he became a mini salesperson, a mini celebrity. There are other people who appeared in the videos as well, and those staff members, when prospects would come in, it's like they were star spotting. They're kind of like, oh, that's the girl from the video. Because, there's that feeling that if you're on video, you must be some sort of little mini celebrity. So again, it just really changed the dynamic in the business. So let's now actually break down, well, what is authority content and how exactly do we implement it? So this is probably the action side of this particular presentation. So I've broken it up into three P's. It's the present, product, and promote. And while that sounds disarmingly simple, the whole purpose of making it so simple, like you'll often find that the simple things have the most thought put in them, because really the skill in creating something simple is to know what it is to leave out. So there's quite a lot of thought that has gone into this product, present, product, and promote. So we'll go through. So first thing we need to dive into is the present component. So most people, and I found this with Melbourne SEO services, most people struggle to create a lot of content. Steve's pretty proactive, hopping up there with Facebook Live, but a lot of people, they just don't have the mind space to do that. And if they do create content, they might work with, a digital marketing company or something like that, and they might outsource that content creation overseas. And it doesn't, the further the content creation gets from the owner, the more it loses the message of what the company is actually about. And it's not even necessarily the owner, but staff. Like if it's someone outside of the business, they don't have a deep understanding of your products and services. They don't have a deep understanding of your clients and your prospects. So I think that content creation, we need to make it easy for your team and you to create content, but I believe it should come from within. We just got to figure out a way to batch that content creation, and then we can take that, repurpose it, and then share it around. Most content that a lot of businesses are putting out there, if they are putting out business content, it would be embarrassing if they knew someone actually read it. We saw that in search engine optimization land probably about 6 years ago, when SEOs were just putting out articles that looked like robots had spun them. They were chunking together different sentences, and it was a bit of gobbledygook. And if anyone actually read it, they're just going to get turned off by the business. But again, this is one of those things, letting go old strategies and now really focusing in on the quality and things that are going to have that lasting staying power. And we talked about it. Google's gotten smart now. All they really need to do is watch what users are doing. That's where the game is played right now. If they can watch the user engagement and how people are engaging with your website and your content, that'll tell them whether or not it's good or bad content. So we need to really focus on that. So authority content, it's just the sweet overlap between creating great quality content and SEOing it. Because most SEOs have it wrong. They're out there creating low quality content, and they're doing it for the sake of just creating a linking opportunity for the idea that it might help their website rank. And most content marketers have it wrong because they're just creating content and they're thinking, if I build it, they will come. And they're just putting it out there hoping that someone would find it. And we want to find that overlap between the two and get the balance between the quantity versus quality. Like I talked about with Stan, you don't want to be, every video that goes out doesn't have to be a Hollywood production. if you're only putting out one video every month or every 2 months, you're just not going to get any traction unless you're throwing money at it to amplify it. You know, maybe you do some pre-roll YouTube ads or you do some Facebook ads or something like that. Then you can get some traction. But if you're doing content to try and have a search engine optimization plan, then onesies and twosies aren't going to cut it. We need to be creating volume at mass. And I'd be talking, you know, at least a few pieces of content every week, really, to get any good traction. Run with that for 6 months to 12 months. Now you'll start to build up this machine that becomes very hard to turn off. So it's the way that we do it, it all starts with, and this is probably where you need to start thinking now, you get very clear about your target market. The first step in this present stage is thinking about who is it that we would like to attract into our business. And you need to think about that person. Think about the buying cycle. Thinking about what questions are they asking just prior to them making a purchasing decision of your product or service. What's that conversation that's going on in their head? You need to put your mind into, you know, their body, understand what's going on, and then you create content that meets them at the point in which that conversation is going on. Because you know the questions they're asking, you then create pieces of content that answer that question at the right time, and then you join in the conversation that's going on. You then demonstrate your authority and, you know, expertise on the matter, and then that helps to engage them, and then we can start to make make some offers and things like that once they start to actually trust us. So thinking about, initially, if you haven't created any content, first thing to do is just list out all the frequently asked questions that you get asked in your business. Chat with your salespeople, chat with whoever's on the front lines, chat with what are the questions that people are asking. That's usually the easiest, lowest hanging fruit for where you should start for creating content. Now, that doesn't work for every single business. Sometimes it's a little bit different. Like, a traditional cafe retailer, you know, I think you're probably not going to, you might not get asked the questions like, how do I pay, or what payment types do you accept on checkout or whatever. So that frequently asked question is probably not something you're getting asked, but you think about what's interesting and relevant to them. I think you were saying your cafe's known for the coffee culture here in Wollongong. So creating content around how to make the perfect coffee. Talk about, you know, what type of beans you use. Talk about, you know, some coffee art. All that type of thing would be very engaging and help to position your business as the expert and the authority. So you need to think in your business, put yourself in the shoes of your prospect or the people that you would like to attract in, and then think about what would be relevant for them. We did some work with this company, Absolute Domestics. They're a domestic cleaning company. And they had created some content before they started working with us. And the content was things like, how do I iron the perfect shirt? How do I clean the grout in my shower? They'd created all this content, and I said, I don't know if the person on YouTube searching for how do I iron the perfect shirt is going to be the person who wants to hire you as a domestic cleaner. It looks like they're searching content to do it themselves. Like, that's why they're on YouTube. So we started creating content with them when we rolled out authority content, answering questions like, do I need to tidy up the house before the cleaner gets here? And can I leave the animals in the house? And should I feel guilty about getting a cleaner? That's actually pretty common. A lot of people actually feel guilty about getting a cleaner. And my wife's... I think it's funny, but it's actually, everybody does it actually. I'm told, a lot of people, is she will clean before the cleaner gets there. And I'm like, we get the cleaner so that you don't have to. She's like, oh yeah, look, if I do the basic cleaning, then she can focus in on the hard stuff. But we might have to edit that out of the recording in case she watches this. So you need to be very conscious about the type of content that you're creating, because it is the bait that catches the fish. And if you create the wrong content, you're going to attract the wrong people into the business and you'll miss the mark. So this is probably one of the most important things that you need to think about right up front. Who is it that you're trying to attract, and what conversations are they having in their head before they ever actually find your service, and try and start answering those questions. And then we use video to capture this type of content. I love video because it's the quickest, the easiest. I think there's a lot of misconceptions around video. It's a lot easier these days than it was. It's a lot cheaper. I think, who was the gentleman up the back who was talking about Gary Vee and saying he's got a videographer, D-Rock, the D-Rock equivalent, who's going to come and follow him around and create a whole lot of content? Fantastic. Go to a local university, ask for a final grad uni student, find someone who's looking to build up their portfolio and say, right, I want to hire you for 2 weeks to come and follow me around. We'll capture different video and you can edit these little clips. That will probably be, you might get them for free. I know there's different intern programs and things like that. Just the other day I was contacted by Melbourne Uni saying we would love to place interns with you unpaid for 3 months because it's part of the requirement of their final year. Get a video student to come and work and just crank out video content that way. It's never been easier. It's never been cheaper. You really should start doing this. And most people don't do video. That's the brilliant thing. People have this, they don't want to step out of their comfort zone. They don't think people are going to want to listen to what they have to say. I'll show you some videos towards the end of this presentation. One of the first videos that I ever did that's got a ridiculous amount of views on it. That's so embarrassing that I won't actually let the video play all the way through. I'm just going to let it play for a second and then I'm going to skip it. But I want to show you how bad it is. And then hopefully that'll give you a little bit of confidence that the very first video you make will be the worst video you make. That's okay. Every video, get a little bit better. Fix your lighting, fix your audio, think a little bit about what you're going to say, think about what the call to action is, and all of that, it's just a process. A video is huge, and it's right at the early days. The prediction, and I think they're on track for this, they're saying, pardon? Oh, question? No, okay. Is anyone else hearing voices in their head sometimes? Okay, maybe it's just me. This is just kind of like very early days, but they're predicting that 3/4 of all consumer traffic, internet traffic by 2018 is going to be in the consumption of video content. Video content is going like this. And as we start to see more and more, I mean, we're seeing the smart TVs. No one's really cracked that really well to actually make the experience of browsing YouTube on your TV easy without having to grab your remote and move around that ridiculous keyboard and do one letter at a time. But when that does happen, and we're getting closer and closer, again, consumption of video will just keep leveling up. People love to consume video. The more that you can position yourself in front of the wave, it's kind of all boats float on a rising tide. Make it easy for yourself. Like, go for what's already going up and then position yourself to take advantage of that. And video is one of those. So, if you want to look for an excuse not to do something, you'll find it. But there's plenty of reasons to do video. Hopefully you get my enthusiasm, and even if you just do one video, I think you'll start to realise how easy it is. The way that we did it with Compass Pools is we blocked out one day. We got them to pre-think about what all those FAQ questions are and different questions, and then we just went in and we filled them and batched it all in one day. We got about 30 videos that we did in one sitting. I'll show you, this is one of the videos that we did, and this one's performing really well. So just imagine yourself on Google and you're thinking about purchasing a swimming pool. Now, swimming pools, it's a pretty big purchase, so you're probably going to do quite a bit of research. I think I was chatting with another gentleman who was doing renovations up the back, and the expense that you would invest into making a renovation is quite large for some people, so you would do some research. It's going to have a long buying cycle, as is a swimming pool. So you're going to be online doing research. You're going to have questions. So we know some of the questions that people ask, and we recorded videos. Imagine you're searching on YouTube, you just asked the question, how much does a swimming pool cost? You did a search on YouTube, on Google, and then you came across this video. Oh, we have got audio, good.
Often people will walk into Compass or they'll give us a call on the phone and they'll say, how much for a swimming pool? Such a great question, and it's a difficult one to immediately answer because there are just so many different options and inclusions and site differences and things that are particular or may be particular about that pool that will change the overall cost. It's not dissimilar from someone walking into a car yard where there's a whole range of cars on offer and saying, well, how much for a car? No one really does that because we're all been educated enough to know what a car is and that there's lots of different inclusions you can have with it. The pool industry is not dissimilar, except you probably just don't have as much information. You certainly will when you come and talk to us. But if I was the salesman of a car and I said to you, would you like power steering and air conditioning with that car? You'd probably look at me today and think, gee, this guy's crazy, of course I want that. Well, there are very similar inclusions to power steering and air conditioning that you can put in your pool that are just as important as the way you see that in a motor car. They're the things that we really want to drill down on and we'd like to talk to you about, or at least make available to you, so when you make a decision on this, you're making a well-informed decision for the long term.
Easy. Not very fancy on the video. Did it in one take, topped and tailed, put his name at the front, put some nice logos at the end. Production's value is very low, but we've got 30 of those. And then we can repurpose the heck out of them. Answered a whole bunch of questions. Just doing it in one day, we're able to get 3 or 6 months worth of content in one sitting. And then what we do is we help to syndicate and share that across the web. So for the client's perspective, it's actually very easy for them to do. We just did another one just recently. There's a company down in Melbourne called Alliance Software. They created some software called Market Samurai. Does anyone know that software? No? It was a keyword research tool. Anyway, they ran an event on how to build world-class custom software. And we recorded that event, and obviously if you were looking for someone to develop software for you, you're probably going to do a little bit of research online, and he answered questions like, should I get my software development done offshore or should I get it done locally? That's a pretty common question that someone would ask. And then answered different questions around how to prepare the perfect brief and how to manage the project once it actually gets going, all those sorts of things. So he batched that content creation. We've just started this process with him, and I'm confident it'll work really well for them. So at the moment now we're moving through, and we've talked about the presenting phase. Hopefully you've captured some ideas in your head around the type of content that you would create. You've thought about batching that content all into one day to make it easy for you. So it's a bit like a Band-Aid. You just rip it off all in one go. Yes, it's a little bit painful to do the first time. It has to take you a little bit of time to prepare. But once you do that, you're setting yourself up to now have a steady stream of content that we can repurpose the heck out of. So then we have to decide around, well, what do we do with this content? That's the product component. And we've got a couple of different options here, and it depends on really the type of business that you've got. If you have a service, sometimes it might make sense to create a home study course version of the service that you provide. So for example, we do search engine optimization, and we make videos for people. So we ran a one-day workshop on how to make excellent web videos and exactly how we did it. It was a great way for me to document our processes and procedures. It was a good way for me to get it out of my head. I can use that for staff training, but we also packaged it together to be a home study course. Now when someone calls us up on the phone and says, I want to get an About Us video, and we say, okay, that's $19.95, basically $2,000, and they go, oh, look, that's more above my budget. I say, great, well, we've got this home study version, tells you exactly how we do what we do, and you can get it for $500. Take that, go down to the local uni, find a uni student, get him to go through the course, and you might end up getting it a little bit cheaper. So it's a really great downsell as well for someone if they don't want to purchase your services. So that's one way that it can be used. But that probably wouldn't make sense for the swimming pool manufacturer. I don't know how many people are going to want a home study course on how to build your own swimming pool. Probably not something that is going to sell very well. So we did it a little bit differently for them, where we created an open resource on the website, which was a swimming pool buyer's guide. What are the frequently asked questions people ask before purchasing a pool? We helped to chronologically order that in the process in which they would be asking themselves those questions. And I'll show you some screenshots of that in a moment. And then we have that live on their website as an open resource. So I come from that stock market education background, as I talked about. Info products is kind of like a big part of what I used to do in some of the workshops down here. Now, I love running workshops with the sole purpose of documenting my processes and procedures. Talk about, most businesses And I told you earlier how fascinated I am right now with processes and procedures, because that I really see is the way to scale your business, and how to get you as the business owner off the tools, out of the business, so you can start to work on the business, so that you can really start to scale the business and get other team members in there to start executing on some of the work. But most business owners, they know that intuitively. They know how important systems and processes are. They see them as important, but not urgent. So it always gets moved down the priority list. No one gets around to actually making a system and a process. So I love using the authority content method as a way to force the creation of those systems and those processes, because you do it all in one day, and then that can get shared through to the team. So that's really, whenever I launch any business, that's one of the first things I do in the business, because that helps me to document our first sets of processes and procedures, and also can be stuff that we can use to help market our service. Oftentimes you'll find people are like, do you really want to teach other people how you do what you do? And I think yes, because what that does is that then helps them to recognize the value that we're actually adding. And then now they go, oh wow, now I can actually see you're good at what you do, you've got a process, and you can deliver consistently. So same with our search engine optimization. I've got a course around authority content, and it explains everything. A certain percentage of them will want to do it themselves. A certain percentage will want it done for them. So I'm just trying to service all of those people. So the open resource might look a little bit like this. So this is the swimming pool manufacturer, Compass Pools. This is the page that ties all of the content together. I'll just underline here. We kind of break it up into constructing the pool, designing the pool, and there are a few different sections, and then questions that live underneath those. So if we just drill into one of these, this is what the finished product might look like. It's a well-optimized piece of content going after a buying keyword phrase. That keyword is in the title, the description, a couple of times on the page. We use the transcript of the video to live underneath the video. So then there's great content for the search engines to sink their teeth into. And this is a helpful page that then points them back. The call to action is to get the free pool buyer's guide, which is an actual magazine that they send out. So this becomes content that then they have an opt-in magnet to encourage people to give them their name, email, and contact details, and then they can have an ongoing discussion. That's a little bit about what we're going to talk about in the next session, but just so you can start to see the method that we're applying here. This is the absolute domestics, and that's a little bit more difficult to read on there than it is on my screen, but it was very similar. So you can see here, before you clean the house, and then there's questions around, can I get a trial clean? Can I communicate with my cleaner? How many hours do I need for house cleaning? Those sorts of things. And then we create content like this. And again, very easy for the business owner to do. And we just batch created a whole bunch of content just like that. And these become digital assets. These video pieces and optimized pages can be used for a variety of different things. We're asking frequently asked questions. Imagine if you get an inbound phone call into your business and they asked you a question like, how much does a swimming pool cost? You answer it over the phone, and then you say, oh, by the way, can I grab your name and your email? I'm just going to send you a link to a video where we answered this in more detail. What a great way to capture their details at that point, and then also send them a piece of content that delivers the message consistently to the standard that you want. Maybe your salesperson or whoever answers the phone doesn't even answer the question over the phone. Maybe they just say, oh, we've got a video that answers that question. Can I grab your details? Now you just ended up saving yourself on wage costs, because you took all your frequently asked questions and then you incorporated it into the way that you do your sales, and now it's much quicker, and you're answering the same questions consistently. And you can answer them as well, because you or your lead salesperson is probably going to answer it better than some new person who's just joined the team and you've got them on the phones to try and learn the ropes. So you can deliver that message really well. And it pays dividends. Like I said, for the metastock industry, stock market education industry I used to be in, just by doing this process, 10 years later, with me not operating in that space, this type of content still drives me traffic today. I'm still getting people find me on YouTube, I'm still getting people find me in the search engines, and I've done nothing. So you're building digital assets, and you're not building junky content. So this is the way to do it. And then we move into the final stage, which is the promote stage. Okay. So this is well, now that we've created the content, how do we get it number one on Google? So from an SEO perspective, and there are a few of you that done SEO before, I suppose this is the sexy part, to understand, well, what's changed now that Google's changed. Obviously, we're creating much richer content, but what do we actually do with it now? And I think a lot of people that haven't yet realised SEO is changing, and they're still using things like blog networks, comment spam, junky press releases, all of that. If you're doing that, you're putting your website, which is your most important asset, in my opinion, your most important marketing asset is your website, because no matter what marketing you do, people are always going to appear back on your website. You're putting it at risk. So you've got to protect your website like it was gold, because it is gold. Like it's the centerpiece for all of your marketing. Regardless of even if people find you via referral, people are going to, even if someone has a great experience with you and says, oh, you should go get this particular product or service, they're going to hop on YouTube, or not YouTube, so they'll hop on Google and try and get to your website more than likely to find out a little bit more about you. So regardless of where that traffic is coming from, your website needs to put its best foot forward. It needs to come up when people are actually searching for it, and it needs to work really well to convert them. So by following this authority content method, so far you're now sitting on a mountain of content. And I am the repurposing king. We can then take that video, and this is one of the reasons why I love video, is because it's the richest form of media that now can be repurposed. We can split out the audio, we can get it transcribed. Those transcriptions can then get given to a ghostwriter. That ghostwriter can turn it into a high quality article. And now that article, that high quality article, it's much easier for someone to edit a transcript than it would be to write it from scratch. Not only that, it retains the message of the business owner. So it's much easier for you to create the high quality content that's on brand, that's on message, and it'll be cheaper for you to do it this way. So then we can repurpose this content. And then we can start to share the content. You know, you start off, you upload it to YouTube, you upload it to your blog. You might, once you do that, if you've got an email database, you would email it out to your subscribers. It's always good, the first bit of content that you put out, to try and get some people to engage in it as early as possible. You know, do some comments and things like that. And then if you've got social media presence, then you can start to post on your socials. And we'll obviously have to think about which social media platforms make sense, but now you don't have to drop all of this content in one go either. You've just recorded the content. You could drip this out over 3 or 6 months, and now you've got something useful, relevant, and helpful to be emailing your database saying, oh, we've just answered a new frequently asked question. Now you can put something on your YouTube account consistently, and then you can start to tweet it out, and you've got something that you can actually share on Facebook. And the good thing is, you can then amplify that content. You put good content out there, you see which pieces of content engage the audience, and then you magnify it so more people start to see it. So the way this looks in the Compass Pools example, for me it always starts with video. I can't get enough of video. You'd upload it to your YouTube. We can start to optimize for different phrases. And yeah, we upload all of these videos. Then what we want to do is customize the message depending on the platform that we're sharing on. So this, we were talking about Gary Vee a little bit earlier. That's his book, Jab, 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 Right Hook. And in this book, he talks about this idea of customizing the message based on the platform. So Twitter is a little bit different from what the content you should be putting on LinkedIn or Facebook. You know, Twitter's a bit more like a cocktail party, so it's like interesting little sound bites. You might link to a YouTube video. Facebook, you could do things like taking stills from the video, or you could upload videos directly to Facebook so it lives natively. Or for LinkedIn, sometimes depending on your audience, you have to think about where your audience is as well. Don't just hop on a social media platform because you think, you know, it's the latest and greatest thing and everybody should be on Twitter because everybody's talking about Twitter. Again, it's all about thinking, where is your target market? That's the whole purpose of this. What we're trying to do is identify where our target market is, think about what questions they're asking just prior to them making a purchasing decision, and then we're looking at serving the content where they are in front of them. And then that's the way that we capture their attention, get their engagement, and start to build trust. So yeah, that's a little bit about Gary Vee. Now, if you want to, whenever I put any content out there, I still SEO everything. So it's a lot different than it used to be. There's not like a very specific formula. I know everybody loves formulas. It's kind of like, what's the magical way to optimize a piece of content? Okay, we need to put at least one keyword in the title tag. You have to put it 3 times in the description, and I want a keyword density of 4% with 500 words. Everybody wants that formula. The best thing to do, because the algorithm changes all the time, the more that you optimize to a formula, you might hit the mark right now, but then when Google changes its algorithm, you'd fall out of reach. You're much better off going more broad, thinking about the user first, letting your natural language take place, do a little bit of SEO, but don't stuff it in, and then you'll tend to perform better. And you'll find that SEO tends to happen naturally that way anyway. So it is good though, every piece of content you put out there, it's good to, if you can, associate 1 or 2 keywords with it. So head over to Google, start typing things in, see what the predictive text says when it pops up. Run a search, scroll down to the bottom of Google, see the related phrases down the bottom, and that'll give you ideas for keywords. Just cherry pick from Google, see what they say is the most searched terms. And but by doing that, you can start to feed things back into Google. You find those keywords that way, and then you feed it back into the content. So again, that's a blog post there. Over here, we've got a YouTube video, and we can see some of the keywords. I'm just going to underline here. So the keyword we went after here, pool construction process. You can notice it's up here in the URL. It's also down in the body copy down here. Over here, another one. This is YouTube. So we've got swimming pool cost. That is the keyword that I've gone after. It's in the title. It's down in the description here. We also pop it in the tags, which it doesn't show in that screenshot. But basically, the takeaway here is every piece of content that you put out there, you should be SEOing, regardless of what platform it is. And then you just do this consistently. And the good thing is, this can be systemized, automated, and turned into a process that your team can execute. This is even something that you could hire a VA over in the Philippines to do, because you've already created all the quality content that was under the present. All of the additional steps, they're just repurposing and sharing your message. So this is perfect to then go to an offshore assistant to help you with this syndication. And then you'd get a copy of the book, Authority Content, and it'll go in detail how to do it. Get them a copy of the Kindle version, say read it, and then say I want you to implement this strategy. And then if we start to do this, think about the content we're creating. You start off, we've got 30 different YouTube videos. We've got 30 different blog posts. We upload the audio to SoundCloud or iTunes. Now we've got 30 different audios. We take the content, we give it to a ghostwriter, they turn it into a polished article. Now we've got another 30 articles. We don't post everything on social media because, we're repurposing a little bit. We just cherry pick some of the best bits. So now we've got some social media posts. Then we can do some email blasts. We cherry pick the best bits that get the most engagement and email that out to our list. We pick some of the other good bits and we do press releases around them, or we turn them into infographics, or we try and do some outreach for some guest posts. The whole purpose here is just in one day, potentially, we're talking 182 bits of content out of one day, high quality, things that you can be proud of and happy when someone actually watches it because it moves them closer to making a purchasing decision. And we did 182. Where most business owners struggle to create one video. So this is the way that we batch it. This is the way that we start to get very good traction. And this is the way that we're doing SEO now. And then you basically amplify this content. So the key is to identify which bits of content are engaging with the audience. You'll put 10 pieces of content out there and you'll find 1 or 2 videos for some reason is getting 3 or 5x the number of views and engagement. People are commenting more on Twitter. People are on Facebook saying, I like that, or giving it the thumbs up, or whatever it is. And you double down on the bits that are working. Those are the bits you write a press release for. Those are the bits that you create an infographic for, or you do a guest post. That's how or maybe you layer in remarketing. You could run ads back to people who hit your website with a very specific piece of content, again, to get them re-engaged back through to your website. This is just an example of what a press release looks like. This was what we did through PR Newswire for Compass Pools when we launched that. So I was going to take a little bit of a look at an example. I haven't yet connected up the internet just yet, so I will probably do that in my next session, and I'll go into a little bit more, so that's what that was all about. But I just wanted to show you a live application of this, but I've already shown you a couple. Go check out Compass Pools. Go check out Melbourne SEO and Video. System Hub. We talked about compass pools, absolute domestics, and I've got some other ones. If you just want to see it live in the wild, that's a good way to kind of really get a deep understanding. And for me, this is modern SEO. It's very different from what a lot of other people talk about, where I didn't talk about page number ones, I didn't talk about the number of backlinks, I didn't talk about private blog networks. I talked about creating great quality content that captures attention, gets people's engagement, and then builds trust. So if you do that, you're giving Google what they want, you're giving your prospects what it is that they want, and then it's win-win. If you follow this path, you'll end up in business utopia, which is what I think really where you want to try and get to. It'll drive great high-quality leads into your business. It'll be consistent, and the lifetime value of the work that you do, it'll last for a very long time. Whether Google changes its algorithm or not, we're not talking about going for a loophole here. We're talking about focusing on something that'll have lasting impact. Now, for me, I took a screenshot a little bit earlier. It's hard to see. Again, it's not quite picking up. But just over the last 90 days, I did it actually back in September, so it was a couple of months back now. But you can see on my YouTube channel, you can see the minutes watched just here. Now, granted, I have been doing this over a little bit of time, but we've had 2,200 hours of my content watched in the last 90 days. Think about what's happening there. That is replicating me. I don't have to chat with all of these prospects. It's helping to pre-sell, position me as the expert. If they feel like I'm the right fit, then they'll reach out, and I'm already positioned as the expert. I did this work once, and it continues to work for me. And this is right at the front of the funnel. We haven't even looked at what that does to our organic traffic on the back end. And the type of content that I'm talking about, and now we're in the tail end, I'll just share a video about this, a story about this guy here and what he taught me about creating viral videos and how that fits in with authority content. So this guy here is a Romanian teenager. A few years back now, I had a friend who posted on Twitter and said he was looking to do an interesting project. He couldn't tell anyone about the details of it, but it would be interesting and you would want to get involved. What I need you to do is to send me $500 to my PayPal account, and then I can tell you more about it. So I sent him $500 just to see what would happen. And he told me about this kid here, this Jenyns, Romanian engineer, 19-year-old kid, who had already done some previous projects, and they were kind of crowdfunding getting some funds together to help him launch his next project. So what he ended up wanting to do, we raised the cash and we sent over 13,000 little Lego bricks. And he built a Lego car powered by compressed air. Everything except for the wheels and the load-bearing struts is built with Lego pieces and the compressed air itself. And he built this over 12 months. Then we shipped the car over in a container, and he came over as well. And then, obviously, Vic Roads didn't give us a permit to drive this on the road. So at 4 a.m. one morning, we're out in the burbs, and we wheeled this car out onto the street. And then we drove it down along the road. Anyway, I've got a video to kind of show you. This is basically what happened. Actually, I got my Lego pieces wrong. $500,000. Oh, the anticipation's killing me. All right, here I am. Ready? I'll tell you. Wait. Any moment now. See in the back, that drone? I'm flying that drone. Pretty cool. So what did I learn from a Lego car that goes viral? It got 4 million views in 30 days, picked up by 150 different media outlets, worldwide coverage. We're talking everybody picked up this news story. And it was really amazing to be at the centre of that, and we helped film it as part of Melbourne video production. And what I've learnt from this whole process was just because you have a viral video doesn't mean you're going to make ridiculous amounts of cash. They didn't really have a way to monetize it. Like they tried to do some pre-roll YouTube ads and they got like under $5,000 or something like that. But the money that we invested to make this happen, and it went viral, and that's as well over like 8 million views now. I make more money 10 times, 100 times more money than we made off that one viral video off my authority content style videos. Some hit the mark, some miss, but mine, I'm targeting people with buying intent, and I've got a very clear reason that someone would want to watch this and then potentially contact us to get our products and our services. Some do better than others. That's okay. It's just about consistency. It's about putting good quality content out there, and it's about doubling down on the best bits. So it's not about going viral. It's just about creating good quality, helpful content. So into the final bit, we kind of covered a little bit about how Google has evolved. We talked about what authority content is, the 3 stages in that. We talked about present, product, and promote. I want to leave a final gold nugget in your lap. I think the other benefit of doing this authority content process, if you pre-think about it, is it's a great way to write a book. Because it's very hard to stare at a blank document and think that you have to write 30 or 50,000 words starting from nothing. But if you plan up front and you think about the sessions that you create on that authority content day and think about the sessions that you deliver almost as though they were chapters of a book, then you can get that transcribed, and then that transcription can go to a ghostwriter. So now we're talking physical books. So here's a book for the swimming pool people where they've taken, how much does a swimming pool cost? And they've got beautiful photos of swimming pools and things like that. So this is a magazine that people can opt in. Down here, other books. The good thing about books is they create that expert positioning. You're the guy who wrote the book on the topic. Now you're the expert. What a great business card. What a great door opener. If you're someone who does renovations, if you came out with a book on, the 10 ways to make sure that your renovation goes on time, on budget, and, nails it every time. You write a book about that, or you run a one-day workshop, you turn that into a book. Now when you get an inbound lead and you say to them, if they're almost there but they haven't quite decided, I've written a book about how to choose the right contractor or the right person to do your renovations. Can I mail it to you? Wow. Who's doing that? And what great positioning. So, this authority content could become your marketing plan for the next, 6 months, 12 months. It will take a bit of work to execute, but again, it's all about lifetime value and return on investment for that effort. That's how I wrote the book, Authority Content. I ran a one-day workshop, taught this particular method, got it transcribed. My mum does all of my transcriptions. She has for the last 10 years and she still does it today. So whenever I run a workshop, I send it to her. So she did the transcriptions. Then we sent it off to a ghostwriter in the UK. He had the first go, and then I had a second go after that. Now, writing a book, once you've done that, you could just use it as part of your lead gen. Like I said, when you're getting leads in, it can help to close as well. Or I put a lot of effort into launching the book. I got different people to share it. I got pre-launch content to kind of build up the excitement and made it an event. I had a launch night and really got quite a lot of momentum and excitement around it. So for me, this was kind of like a big way to launch on Amazon. We ended up getting #1 on Amazon. We had maybe, 7,000 downloads within the first five days. And what a great way. Some people are going to get this book and they're just going to take the content, use it, implement it. Fantastic. More power to you. Chances are they probably weren't ever going to be my client anyway. Some people are going to read it and go, I really like that idea. I've got a good established business, but I don't want to implement this. I'll just get the experts to do it. And then they came straight to us. So it's great lead gen, great positioning, and it's opened a ridiculous amount of doors for me. Like most recently, the one that Steve talked about, I got Michael Gerber, who's contacted me. He wrote in 1995, the Wall Street Journal, and I know that was a little while ago, but they named the E-Myth the #1 selling business book of all time. It sold over 5 million copies. If you haven't read it, you really should, because it's all about building a business as though it were a franchise, and it's about scaling. And they've just contacted me to launch his last book in the E-Myth series called Beyond the E-Myth. So if you go to beyondemyth.com, the launch is happening right now, and you can watch along just to see how we launch the book. It's a very tight timeline. It'll launch on December 7th, and we'll be launching on Amazon. So yeah, definitely worth checking out. The premise behind Beyond the E-Myth is this whole idea that the sole purpose, really, of starting a business is to end up selling it. Like if you start with the premise thinking that I will sell my business, and you build it from day dot thinking that the end product that you will ultimately end up selling is your business, then you actually come to building your business with the right mind frame, because you think about systems and processes and how do I make this work without me and all that sort of thing. And that's what Beyond the E-Myth is about. It's about how do you build a business that scales so you can ultimately end up selling it. So that's, yeah, but that gives you an idea of the opportunities that can start to open up. And it depends on what industry you're in. Like, you want to become the Oprah within your industry. You want to be the one that people look to, because the authorities, they command attention. They get, they can charge higher prices. People queue up to do business with them. You don't have to sell as much because someone's already sees them as the authority and the expert. So the discussion, when you first start chatting, it's not about how much does your product or service cost. It's, is this the right fit? Yes, it's the right fit. Let's do business. That's a much better place to be, rather than having someone call up and say, how much is this renovation going to cost? Like, you want them to come to you and want to do business with you, rather than you having to sell them. So everything that we covered, and we covered quite a bit there. I know if you look for an excuse, you'll find one. Usually it's the case of if you look for anything, you'll end up finding it. There's lots of reasons not to do what it is that I talked about. Time. Who's got the time to do this? It's going to cost too much. I don't have the skills. How am I going to get in front of the camera? Well, time. We talked about batching. Cost. It's a lot cheaper than you thought. Go end up getting a university student to help the first piece to record it, and then go find some VAs over in the Philippines to help you with the second piece. Skills. It's never been easier. So for me, if you're looking for excuses, you'll find them. But there's also, if you're looking for reasons to do things, you'll find those too. Now, I told you at the start I was going to tell you about a really bad video that I made. I'll just play just a little bit, enough for you to go, wow, I can make a video that's better than that. Now, this one's probably had over, 60,000 views or something like this. This was recorded probably back very early 2000s. That is my bedroom. That's my dresser drawer just there. That's a little change jar there. Yeah, I look like I'm about 14. I still look like I'm about 14, but I am a little bit older. And the lighting is horrible. Like, I look a little bit like, my face is not lit, so I look a little bit like some sort of criminal or something. The audio is horrible. Like, there's a lot of things wrong with this video. So don't use that as a reason not to do it. Welcome to metaformula.com. My name's David Jenyns and I'm the webmaster here. And I suppose you're wondering why I said just up the top there, don't... All right, that's enough of that one. I told you I wasn't going to play much. But if you're looking for reasons to do things, I'm hoping I've given you enough reasons to take action on what I've talked about. This stuff works. I've chiseled away at this. This is some of my best stuff. And oftentimes when you get a book, you don't appreciate the value that you're going to pay $24.95, or I've got books I'm going to sell them today for $10 up the back of the room. If you think that this has got $10 worth of value, then you're seriously misguided. This has probably got hundreds of thousands of dollars of development to me to get to this point. I even sent this preview copy to a couple of people, And I had one guy who said, Dave, if you're going to write a book, you should write a book that's useful but incomplete. Because then people will get a few chapters in and they're going to have to call you to find out, and then you can upsell them to your mastermind course or your done-for-you service. I said, that's not the way that I play. I would rather give you absolutely everything, and I know if I over-deliver in value, that's a much better way to play. I can affect more change, and the right people will start to bubble up who want to work with me. So the book goes into everything. I don't hold anything back. It is the strategy in great detail, and it's for $10 up the back of the room, and I'll sign it.